AllReasonNoLogic.
Hello and welcome to the AllReasonNoLogic video for today. Today we've got a few of our regulars in with us, so we've got Tank Tom in red, Wineera in blue, and Black Death in green. And this is one of the free-for-alls that we had over the last weekend, and it was good fun. With me I've got Bruticus here to go through the cast, and we'll keep you up to date on things as they're happening.
So the map today is Red Triangle Remake. So it's an interesting map. 4 islands, 3 little islands on each of the sides. 2.3s and 1.5 mexes spread across the map. 2.3s in the starting locations. With this FFA, the players were randomly started in position. So we thought they were going to land on the islands, but they actually landed on the main island together. 1 geo in the center and a lot of mexes in that center mass as well, and a decently defensible position with a few alleys of attack. We can see our players. So starting off with Wineera, he has gone Armada, and then our friend Black Death has gone Armada, and he's got his bot lab up as well. And then Tank Tom is going Cortex with a bot lab. So we've got 2 Armada players and a Cortex player.
It was interesting this game because all of us were in comms together. There was lots of banter going on. As the game progressed, all of us were going, not what we were expecting to drop in. We were all thinking, as you said, that we were going to pick where we spawned, and then it was basically, okay, yep, off we go.
Yeah. Definitely something to get used to after having a team game where you can pick your location, set up a basic build order, and then, be brain dead for like a first minute or so while you look around the map. Whereas these, you're just thrown straight in, so you got to start building straight away.
Yeah, so you can see that all 3 of us are largely focusing in our corners at this stage. I've started getting some units out. Black Death's already got some of his defensive turrets up. He's definitely a fan of that, having the defenses up early. I have been burnt quite recently with a few of those not having things up soon enough. But with this game, I got a couple of grunts out early just to see if they were going to be sending units at me. So I've got one in the middle and then one on each side where either of them would come to me.
You can see Wineera's got a couple of blitz out as well, so he's got his defensive units ready to move if he needs them. You can also see he's quickly expanding out with his constructor. If we look in his lab, there we go. He's got a beaver being built, which is the amphibious vehicle constructor.
Yep, and he's just had that like second constructor come out now, and the beaver's on its way. So, and you can see he's already given that the build queue to head over to that island to start building those mexes. One thing that's probably worth mentioning is just how much metal is on this map for reclaim on that center island as well.
Yes, I did miss that. Looking at like 500s and close to just under 500s and a few around the 300 mark. So that's a lot of reclaim, actually. If you build a metal storage and send out a couple of res bots, you could bank a lot of metal for growth or building an army, depending on your sort of play style. As you will see, we'll see some different play styles in this one as well. I definitely like Wineera's vehicle start going into that beaver. Getting those islands would be absolutely fantastic early on, and they'll pay for themselves very quickly, and it'll be harder for players to raid them as well, especially being bot, which he doesn't know yet.
Yeah, so red and green, with both of us being bots, we don't necessarily have the option of being able to leave this center island easily.
No, basically you need to take your commander and go over to one of those islands at this stage of the game, or do a air transition, which would be a death blow if you got caught doing it instead of building units.
I seem to remember that it was at about this point that Rhaenyra had worked out where I was, purely based on where the reclaim was disappearing from.
You can see Black Death's got a resbot out there, smartly reclaiming what he can, getting the stuff around the front of his base first, getting that safe reclaim.
And if you look up in the top right of the screen, you can see the economies there. So Black Death and myself are definitely in the lead with those reclaim bots going around. You can see the metal bouncing up and down depending on who's eating what.
I'm just looking at the statistics, and Black Death's just ticked over 4k metal, and you're at just about to tick over 4k yourself, while Rhaenyra is only just ticking over 3,000 metal. So definitely a metal advantage getting that early reclaim.
We can see Rhaenyra making contact in the middle here for the first time. And I had enough units there to repel that relatively easily. Not quite keen on running into the Janus though.
Yeah, no, definitely a dirty unit to run into early on, especially when you're running grunts.
At this point I do have plenty of grunts to be able to use though. And the thugs have started their march as well.
So one play if you are...
I'll let you go.
I was going to say, one play if you are facing Janus, and if they're not being microed very well, is use a grunt to run into the Janus and bait the shots out, and then you can push them. But unfortunately, Rhaenyra is quite good with microing his Janus.
You can see that I've had some grunts move in on that bottom side while he dealt with the ones on the top. Not that they're going to do huge amounts this time, but it was, what's that, 3 maxes and an LOT down for a handful of grunts.
It's definitely worth trying to split that micro while he's focused on microing elsewhere. See if you can slip something in another direction. Definitely something I like to try to do is stretch someone's micro. You see the stouts are out now to give those that Janus a bit of cover, and they're dealing with those thugs that have moved up.
At this point, because I'm starting to get the metals in the middle, and with that next wave of units coming down, what's that, 11 thugs and 3 grunts to join the thug that's already there, should be plenty to be able to hold off the handful of units that are there. I think it was about this point that we're going, Black Death's been awfully quiet. Should probably find out what's going on over there. So...
Now, it's not unusual for Black Death to not expand rapidly and fortify himself and build a large army. He does like his overwhelming numbers.
Yeah, and that was the bit.
And you will see that. I was going to say, you will see that come into play in his favor later in the match.
Yeah, so you can see just as we're about to hit 8 minutes here, he's got his army on that sort of southern entrance out of his base. And with these free-for-alls, one of the considerations is you don't necessarily want to have a huge fight with one player, because then you get left open to the third player, and you don't want to leave someone completely on their own to be able to eco up and then come rolling through with a huge army that can deal with both of the other players uncontested as well. So that's why I've ended up parking stuff on essentially both fronts. And you can see Black Death's units coming in here now. Against the thugs, the Khornes are going to struggle. And seeing that he's got his army out of his base, I'm pushing in on the other side to make the most of that opening while I can.
Yeah, getting in there, doing a bit of damage. Looks like he took out a couple of maxes, a line of wind as well, which is good eco damage for losing 2 thugs in his base. The other reclaim from the other fight is out in the middle of the map, where it's harder for him to get out there and get it back.
And for that engagement, I made the decision of actually pulling my units back rather than committing and losing them in his base. I know I'm definitely prone to committing and essentially throwing away the army to try and achieve an end, and I probably could have taken out his win, but at this stage, having the map control, I figured it was worth doing what I could kind of easily, and then setting up again.
It looks like at this point you are full on metal as well, so you are absolutely smashing out that thing, but it looks like it's jumping up and down as well.
My metal at this stage, my metal excess is only 9.
Oh,
so I
no,
got
you're not full on
real
metal, sorry.
close, but wasn't quite overflowing. And you can see this is where the T2 lab comes up.
Yeah. Which is a good play, especially with all that map control and having several armies spread out across the map. You are able to, if someone, let's say, Wineera pushed out, you'd have an army there to engage it, while you could maneuver other armies into support, and maybe leave one over on black side as well in case he tried to push out as well. So you've definitely got good map control there, and very good control of the bulk of the mexes on that main island. The advantage in Wineera's favour, though, is he's getting a second on that second island, and he's getting 2 beavers now building up the mexes on there. And the advantage there is being both against 2 bot players, they have nothing to reach out and harass that metal, so he's going to get a nice steady income. And you can see that he's doing his own T2 transition as well.
So you can see that Wineera's got that eco running at a consistent, we'll call it 24 or so. Mine's up at about 40 metal a second at the moment, and energy is relatively even kind of between us all. That sort of
looks like
4 to 5.
Yeah, Wineera's trailing you by about 200. Black Death, where is our friend Black? He's around about the same mark as Wineera, around the 400 mark.
Mine should be spiking soonish with the Geo getting built in the middle. And at this point I knew that I had the guys covered on that central island, but I was fairly certain that sooner or later they were going to disappear. Wineera's a fan of his navy, and he'd already, I think it was by about this point, he'd made some comments about the base being conveniently close to the edge of the water.
Yes, I believe I remember something about the bases are only as good as only good until a battleship shows up.
Yeah,
something along those lines. You can see that up on that North Island, he also has construction turrets going up there. So it looks like he is in some form of naval play, whether it be seaplanes, hovers, or ships. He's definitely going to be going down. And also down in the south of his base, you can see he's setting up a tidal farm as well. And again, this is a good play because at this point in the game, there's not really much that you have that can reach it. Although you have gone T2 now, so ducks are definitely an option.
It's good to see the radars that he's got there as well, giving him some vision so that he has an idea if anything is coming across to that bottom island. You can see I'm just pushing into Black Death now. At this point, he had more than I realized he was going to.
This is where he likes his overwhelming advantage, and he definitely likes his Centurions. They are an absolutely solid unit. Unfortunately, while he's pushing out, he's pushing with the rocket bots forward, not the Centurions, so he was losing a few rocket bots for that. Looks like you're pushing into Wineera as well.
Yeah, so he did a fantastic job there of completely blunting that attack. I've just moved into Wineera now. And at this stage I was largely trying to find out what they had, because I'd left them alone for a while. I wasn't going to be too surprised if they were kind of at or on the cusp of T2. And I didn't quite want to let them build an army and then continue.
So just looking at what you can see, your view, you've seen the T2 mechs, so you would have got the alert that a T2 unit had been detected. God.
Yeah. And at this point I had the Fiend streaming into the middle.
Looks like Black learnt from your previous attack where you baited out the army and then sent it in. He's got some lightning claws set up there to try and blunt it. But
Yeah.
again, you just go in the other door since he's moved his army to try and counter that attack.
And with the T1, that definitely stops that push.
Also got a Fiend Raid going in Rhaenyra's base as well. So you're doing the dirty to everyone at once.
I wanted to share the love around. You couldn't leave them alone.
No, absolutely. You know.
And with these Fiends, rather than having them on fight commands, looks like I left the ones in Black Death's base sitting there. But through Rhaenyra's base, I basically just had them running through. The intention was that they were likely going to die, but they were going to take out as much as they could along the way.
Yeah, and they did some solid damage there. 3 maxes down, defenses, a lot of tanks. A lot of wind as well.
Good job from
Fortunately for
Rhaenyra,
though, he has
reclaiming that Fiend in his base when he was out of defenses and didn't have any units there. You can use those build towers to eat units.
Unfortunately, that eco damage wasn't the best in the energy area, as Rhaenyra already has a lot of tidal up now to counter that, and that is nice solid energy as well. It's not going to be dipping up and down like the wind. It's just going to be that constant.
And at this point, because I'd pushed into both of their bases and hadn't found comms, we knew that it was basically hide and seek for where they'd ended up into the water.
Well, you're standing boldly in the middle next to the advanced Chio that's been building, saying, hey, come and fight me.
See, I thought the middle was safe. And at least for now it is. So you can see that I've just got the first fusion starting up in my base. I think I've got build queues that run... Yeah, I've got build queues that run across all the mexes to get those going as well. At this stage, Rhaenyra's pretty close on metal. I'm a bit ahead on energy.
Rhaenyra's getting that third island now, which is really going to balance out the metal production. Fortunately, poor Black's hemmed in on 3 maxes. And he only has 2 up and active at the moment. There is a command set to rebuild those. What has been set to build it? He's calm.
Yeah, while he's still got the reclaim of his base, he's hanging in relatively even, but that's going to run out pretty soon.
I'm just looking at the metal produced statistics, and you're at just ticked over 38,000. Rhaenyra's on 27,700, and Black Death is on 16,700. So there's definitely a advantage there in pushing out with that early aggression and getting map control. But Rhaenyra is slowly clawing back the incomer seconds with getting those islands.
Yeah, being able to expand to areas that I can't touch him, essentially, means that for now he's going to be safe. And this is where the plans start to transition from being able to essentially crush this middle island to, okay, how do I get off of this island, find where they're at, and continue dealing that damage.
And got another raid running in there with Fiends again, but those Jaguars are doing a fantastic job of killing them.
Yeah, we're just getting to 18 minutes now. Those Fiends are going into Rhaenyra's base. You can see, we'll move up to Rhaenyra's navy in a second, after we've watched this one. You can see the experience of being involved in a few of these now. Some of the first units he's built is anti-air, which means that I can't transition across into an air raid and kill him that way.
Black Death. Also, you're raiding Black Death as well.
That one Fiend that's made it all the way into the back, taking out all the wind. Mostly all the wind.
But still, having those Centurions, they are surprisingly, especially in these numbers that Black has, effective against Fiends.
Yeah, they're enough that I can't necessarily take them head on. Given the option, I'd rather go around rather than through them.
Like pound for pound, the Centurion has more hit points. DPS is 183. What's our Fiend? 240. So it's lacking on the DPS side of things, but in these
but
numbers,
they're
um,
beefy.
not
The
as
fact
quick
that
as
they
the
can
Fiend
stand there
either.
and
So
keep pumping out that damage,
yeah,
you can see
looks
that
like you're
I've
lining up for more raids as well.
yeah. This was basically the last of the Fiend productions. So I've got an army set up to raid each base again. These Jaguars did a great job of taking out the Fiends.
Mm-hmm. They're absolutely superb little unit. Not much in the hit point range, but they have that dual purpose as well, as they have a light anti-air attack as well. So it's not coming into play in this, but it's just something to keep in mind as it with the Jaguar. And also that lightning damage is just fantastic. And I believe it chain.
I think it does. So when you've got a massive units running into them, they do a good job of holding them at bay. You can see that I've stopped my Fiend production because the T3 lab is almost complete. Yeah, so the T3
You
lab's
can
just finished
see,
up there, and Shivas are coming out of that as the first units.
yeah, and you can see when Nero has kept his promise, or not promise, but prediction earlier of the game, and he has a battleship out and a second one just floating out now. Jammer and radar ship as well, so he's going to be able to hide this force and also sneak in and get line of sight. Look, you're another Fiend going into
Yeah.
poor Black Death again.
With Black Death, rather than fighting his front, I was basically throwing units through it. As long as I got something through, I could deal the damage to the eco there.
The thing is, Fiends don't really leave much debris as well. Like I'm looking there, and you got a couple of wreckages, but they're not like full wreckages. They're more rubble, so 120 metal. So it's like you've got anything to res, you can get a little bit of reclaim, but it's not terribly effective. Looks like Rhaenyra's fleet is on the move now as well.
Yeah, he was relatively pleased with himself at this point. And by now that I knew that my base was probably dead, or at least I was expecting to have to rebuild my base at some stage.
No, I remember hearing the tauntings that Rhaenyra did about when his fleet was about halfway to your base, and I was like, yeah okay, you bastard.
Yeah, I knew it was on the way. It was just a matter of when it was going to arrive. What could he see at this point? Okay, so we can just see that there's lots of dots there. So we knew that he was hitting my base, and that he was getting a fusion, but he couldn't necessarily see the T3 at this point. I seem to remember that at some stage he did get the notification for it. See,
yeah, I remember
just there,
the
it's
comment
popped up on the map.
Oh, Shiva.
And he's gone, oh, T3. And as he hit my base, I was like, well, this is my cue. Off we go to destroy the last of his corner. So I've got, we'll call it 6 Shivas on the way.
Yeah, it looks like one's hugging a hill at the moment, or traversing it, dawdling behind the rest. That's probably the Shiva I'd be sitting in, taking my time.
Yeah, I don't think that last one made its way out before that T3 lab got completely destroyed. And this was the point where I was going, I wonder if he can get to the middle. But it was satisfying getting these Shivas in. Rhaenyra hadn't realised that I'd managed to get this many out before he'd killed the base. And that was more than enough to finish off his little corner here. The Shivas being significantly more effective against the Jaguars that were in there and the couple of defences. Rhaenyra's Navy coming around and completely finishing off that top base. The T3 lab going down now as well.
But he is going the major dirty, and he's going for a flagship now as well, which is almost 30% done.
and the range on that is quite nice.
Very concerning, especially with that geo there. If he decided that he wanted to hit that geo of that flagship, that's going to clean up a lot of your metal income there. What are we making there at the moment? Just give me a moment.
I didn't look at
Those
what it was.
metals, 9 mexes around the geo is 65 metal a second. So that geo and then blowing up those mexes would be a massive dent in your income.
I should have looked at what it was before he hit my top base. I'm down to 140, but still in the commanding metal lead at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
And with enough resources available that I can rebuild that T3 gantry.
9k metal for the gantry, or 8.4, sorry, for the gantry is a lot. But when you're on 140 metal a second, it doesn't take too long to get it done. Unfortunately, poor Black is now copying the wrath of the Shivas.
Yep, those fiends going in first, and the Shivas sitting at range, making the most of their advantage over the T1 units. Yeah, at this point I was full on metal, so I had 12k sitting in the bank. Trying to get enough build power up to spend it again.
Again, this is a good point where you, even if it's only T1 metal storage, it only holds 3k, but popping more up, you can capture more metal for later use, and then once you've used that metal and you've got your build power up, you can just reclaim the metal storages themselves for the full amount of metal back. So you don't lose metal. But
I should definitely use more metal storages.
It's hard to think of when you're in the middle of doing something. Like at the moment, you're in the middle of bullying Black Death.
Yeah, I'd set up the T3 lab, the bank of build towers, and then was basically, yeah, as you said, pushing Black Death off into the water again. I was mildly surprised that I hadn't found any comms at this stage.
Black Death very cheekily getting away with his comm before those Shivas were able to get right into the base.
I remember it must have been about this time Winera was making ominous comments about the range of flagships, and I wasn't quite sure whether he was bluffing or not at this stage, but I knew that I had to then work out how I'm getting out to find them in the water, because up until this stage I hadn't gone out exploring, and based on the fact that everyone was still in it and the ships had rocked up, I knew that it had to be ecos sitting out in the ocean somewhere. And when you're doing a good job just running these ships around to be able to hit anything and everything they can. So that at this stage I've essentially only got that core center section that's still producing for me. Energy wise, it's very even.
Moving out.
I think at this point I wonder if they can make it there or not. Hopefully they can. If not, they were just going to get stuck on the edge of the water there. Because I knew that there at least had to be stuff on the islands.
Yeah. Like for Winera to get those sort of battleships out with only a little bit of map control would be very difficult without those islands in his control as well.
I've got a handful of the Cataract, the heavy laser hover tanks, the T3 units, because I knew I had to get out and about on the ocean. I figured they'd be useful to try and traverse and find out what's actually out there. The Shiva's
taking... The good thing about the Cataphracts is, as well, they've got that depth charge, so if you do encounter a commander in the water, they can kill it.
That I was not aware of. I was aware that the Shivas, even if they could go through the water, wouldn't necessarily be able to fire underwater.
That is where the Cataphracts and also the Armada Lunkhead, the Armada T3 version of hovercraft.
Right.
Both can shoot depth charge, so they are a counter to anything in the sea. They're not the bulkiest unit when it comes to hit points, though. But definitely a good counter, and then you can traverse the land as well. So that's where their true power is. They're a true all-terrain vehicle. Well, other than they can't climb hills, of course.
Or jump off cliffs. It'd be satisfying if you could throw them up cliffs.
Yeah.
But
That's
when you're rolling
pounders
through
to bounce them off.
with that navy here, definitely having the firepower over me in these engagements. The cataphracts are relatively slow firing.
But while he's out playing down near his titles, you have another wave of cataphracts moving out near his base. Now, I don't believe he knew where his base was. No, you don't.
No, at this point I'm basically running blind. I know I'd cleared that bottom island. I'd found that eco in the sort of bottom left there, and you can see that the Shivas have a move command to basically swing around the entire map and see what I can find.
Nothing like smashing a beaver there.
Yeah, so we're getting close to the 30-minute mark at this stage. I had no idea where Black Death had gone. I think I managed to just see him in the corner in a second here, but I found Rhaenyra's base up in this top side. Well, at least found his island. There was some banter about trying to work out where he was hiding, because at this stage I didn't know where his economy center was. So you can see that I can see the island and his navies come up, but I never actually got vision of his base over there.
It looks like you picked off a couple of missile turrets, the sea version of Nettles, but you might not have seen those considering no wreckage is left.
Yeah, so I knew that there was some stuff on the island, and I knew that he had some navy bits. The flagship's just come out, which does a good job of clearing up that little push, and at this point I was basically on the run because I didn't have anywhere near enough to deal with that. The Shiva's just hitting that top right island at the moment. Nothing too much there, so that was all relatively easy to clean up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, minimum investment on those islands from Rhaenyra, but didn't need a big investment. They paid for themselves in dividends.
Yeah, for those handful of amphibious constructors, they definitely got their money's worth.
Like you got another Shiva attack, not Shiva, Cataphract attack rolling out to finish off Rhaenyra's tidal generation.
Yeah, enough of those this time around. Because they don't chain react, you have to actually go and make sure that you pretty much kill everything that's there.
And I can hear aircraft.
That's right. This was because I went, I know they're going to be somewhere. It's going to be easier to find them with some aircraft than it is to wait for units to walk around the map.
Mm-hmm. That's the brilliant thing about tall bombers, having a built-in sonar. You've got the speed of air, and then you've got the ability to kill anything that is in the water with them. So it's like the whole die water die package.
Essentially.
Excuse me.
I want to see what Rhaenyra is looking at as he's coming out here. He knew that I had the eco center in the middle there, and you can see that he can comfortably reach that with the flagship.
Realistically, I wouldn't have gone for those mexes first. I would have gone straight for that Geo.
Yeah, the Geo on the big juicy clump of dots there.
Yeah, I'd want the big bomb. And there you can see your build power just went kaput.
Yeah, build power's completely gone. Thankfully, I've got this air lab with some build power on it as well, and he's now hitting that geo, which is going to be basically the last of, well, most of my energy. I still got a couple of fusion reactors, but they're going to be within range and at risk as well.
At this time, it's more of a can you get enough torpedo bombers out to deal with that flagship before that flagship deals with the energy income and pretty much stops you from building torpedo bombers, considering that they are 8.2k energy each.
You can see that I've got some cataphracts going to deal with Black Death in that bottom right corner, and I'm just finding Winera in his base now as well. So now that I found him, you can see all those torpedo launchers, all those torpedo bombers mobilizing.
I do love air. Absolutely love air. They look like they're on an attack command just out into the boonies at the moment.
Yeah, I found the base. Yeah, and once I found his comm.
Yeah, that's GG with only that one flagship there to defend.
And Black Death, the sole survivor, running up that right hand side.
Unfortunately, this is where the torpedo bombers are really good. Like, those hovers will take a while to catch him.
And this is why I moved into the torpedo bombers, so that I did have something that could get across the map quickly. So I think all in all of us enjoyed this because we're all sitting in Discord having some fantastic banter.
Yes, there was a bit of shit talk going on.
There was a lot of shit talk going on. So if we have a quick look at the stats there, you can see that commanding medal produced just from being able to hold essentially the entire middle island.
Yeah, no, you're more than double anyone else. 167k, where there's 80.7k, and Paul Black hemmed in that corner of the island the whole time, 26.8k.
It is worth looking at the damage dealt. Black did a great job of essentially matching me for damage dealt. Up until that, we'll call it 15 minutes or so. Because he had that solid army that I couldn't necessarily push through. That did a good job of holding its own.
You can see where the ecos have boomed with the damage from you and Winera starting to shoot off, and where Black Death pretty much had his base wiped. You can see that there starts to just flatline.
So I think that's pretty much where we'll leave this for today. Big thank you to the guys for coming along and joining in for the free-for-all. It was great to have them participate and being able to make fun of each other and lead each other astray. I hadn't realized just how close I was to Winera's base. I was like, oh no, I'm not there. You should go look in the other corner.
So this was part of one of our guest events as well. So what we have on the channel is we've got on the Sunday, there's an event. It'll convert to your local time. Jump on the channel, have a look. If you've got a question, ask me, Bruticus, and I'll help you out. But it's an open invitation to have some people join in with us, have some fun, do some games together, and pretty much just have a laugh. It's all unranked as well, so you're not going to lose any OS or gain any OS, so there's no risk at all. It's really just for some fun.
To jump in, have a good time, and enjoy ourselves, essentially. And I think on that note, we'll call that there. Thanks for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe. And feel free to join us on the Discord.
Yep.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye for now.